Alright guys, you all seem to really enjoy the last video, and as long as I keep getting positive feedback, I'm going to try my best to keep cranking them out here on YouTube. So, today we're going to do a follow-up video to what we talked about yesterday, which was training the upper chest and really learning how to feel this upper chest working. Today we're going to do a follow-up talking about how you can implement some of the principles we discussed in the gym. So, if you haven't watched the last video, make sure you go and do that first so that you know what I'm talking about. I will recap a couple key points real quick. First of all, primary function of the pec, bring the arm across the body. It has a lot of other functions, but anything where you're bringing the arm across the body is going to be the most efficient way to work your pecs. Now, just because you're doing a barbell bench press doesn't mean you can't do that, and we're going to show some examples as well. The other big thing to remember is that this area up in here, lots of stuff coming together. You got the pec major, pec minor, front delt, bicep, all that crap, all right here. This area can get really tight. So you gotta mobilize this so you don't end up straining some shit up in here. You don't wanna do that, okay? Be careful. Go check out the mobility video that I linked in my last video, and make sure that you're working on that area, doing your prehab so that you don't run into trouble down the road. Finally, remember that actually almost all training is going to be highly dependent on your individual leverages. So in the case of the upper pecs, we talked yesterday about how some people, like myself, tend to do better when they're pressing in a straight line, or like you might do in a Smith machine, or like you might do on some other types of pressing machines. Others prefer to press in an arc because that's going to put them in a better position to lift more weight. Kind of a J arc over towards the face. You'll see this a lot with powerlifters where they touch their bench press fairly low right by the nipple and then they press back over the face, and that allows them to be more efficient with the lift. That may benefit you, it may not, and I'm going to show some examples of that as well. Okay? So let's get into the gym and let's see what you can do when you put these things into action.
So the first movement we're going to look at is cable flies. And when you set up to do these, it's very important you don't just choose a random position. You want to choose a position where the cable is starting out basically directly in line with your nipple. Okay? And what we're going to do is basically mimic that activation exercise that we learned yesterday, where we press out in front of us and then move our arms upward. I'm going to show you first the regular style of doing cable flies, and you can see, right, I'm just kind of going straight and my fists are ending right about my nipple line. And that's a good way to target the pecs and get warmed up or finish up a workout, get that nice pump at the end. But you can see if I just straight up go for the top of the movement, that's going to put a lot of stress on my delts. So let's watch again in slow motion. That's a regular cable fly, all right? When I start to have my hands end up higher up on my pecs, right, to target the upper chest more, well, that's when my front delts also come into play, and I prefer to avoid that. It's not terrible, but I would prefer to avoid that, and that's what's going to happen if you set the handles too low, right, and the opposite will happen if you set the handles too high. You're still going to have too much of your kind of rear mid delt in there. So you want it right at the nipple line. And then you don't want to go just straight. You want to do a sweeping movement, just like that, because that's going to get that good strength at the beginning, but then as you go up, right, just like in our activation movement, you're targeting that upper chest, right? And you don't just have to do this for cable flies. You can really implement the same thing on many different movements. So let's move on to another movement, all right? We're going to look at incline dumbbell presses. This is a great movement. Now, I talked yesterday how about I don't have as great shoulder mobility as I'd like. I'd like to go down a little bit further, get a better stretch. But look at what I want you to focus on is how at first I was pressing straight out and now I'm pressing out and in, right? The function of the pec is to bring the arm across the body. So when you're pressing straight up, just like that, right? This is in slow motion. When you're pressing straight up, you're not getting quite as much pec activation as if you press up and in and really squeeze those dumbbells together at the top. Just like that. See how we're squeezing the dumbbells together? That not only allows you to really focus on that contraction at the top, but it's also going to be a better way, a more efficient way to work your pecs. Now there's another little trick that we can do to achieve the same thing, and that's usually called a hex press, because this is best if you do it with hex-shaped dumbbells so they're not rolling around on you. But basically you're just going to keep the dumbbells together the whole time so your arms are already in towards your body and you can just keep that contraction throughout the entire movement. I really like the hex press. It's going to limit the amount of weight you can use because there's a little bit less tricep involvement. But the other thing I want to point out here is we talked about how some people press in an arc and some people press in a straight line. Now if you watch the difference between those first presses, okay, watch these first presses again, right? I'm still going up in a little bit of an arc. I'm touching my nipples and then I'm more or less over the top of my pec there. And that's okay. But I'm going to take my triceps out of the movement even more and allow myself to use a heavier weight if I press back farther, because that puts my triceps in a better position. Now, for me though, that's honestly not the most efficient when you're looking at the barbell press, because your range of motion is somewhat more limited. I don't have as much freedom to position my arms or my hands exactly as I would like. So that's why for incline barbell pressing, I really prefer the Smith machine. It safely locks you in to a straight line when you're pressing. Now when I say a straight line, I want you to watch the bar as we go through again in slow motion. The bar, obviously it's a Smith machine, has to move straight up and down. And that for me is the most efficient way to press. And you can see this is not a counterweighted Smith machine. I'm able to crank out reps pretty easily with that perfectly straight bar path. Okay? Now for other people with different leverages, that arc might be better for pressing with a barbell as well. You can see here, right? I'm pressing with a barbell. Watch the bar. Watch the bar. See how the bar moves back a little bit? I'm trying to minimize that as much as possible, but it's much more difficult without the Smith machine as a guide because you can't really press against anything. There's nothing forcing you into the right range of motion. This is again in slow motion. You can see more of that arc. Right off my chest, there's more of an arc. But I'm struggling more with this weight because I'm not as efficient in that position. Honestly, y'all, the moral of the story is the same as it is in almost everything I talk about. You have to find what works for you because everyone's body, everyone's mentality, everyone's everything is different. And if you're just trying to follow some guru, whether it's me, somebody that I really respect like John Meadows, some other random person on YouTube, it doesn't matter. If you're not thinking about what you're doing and you're not trying to find what works for you, you're not going to have optimal results. That's all I got for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please leave feedback below. Please leave suggestions for other videos and similar topics that you'd like to see. And I am going to go get my beard trimmed. So till next time, think strong and train hard.